And welcome back everybody to another in my in-depth build video. And this is episode 6 in the series looking at this, the ICM 1/48 scale Hampden Mark I. If you haven't seen the previous video, I will try to remember to put a link above to episode 5. It's all in the same playlist. You can jump back to the beginning and you can watch the entire series from the start if you haven't seen any of them yet. In the last episode, we started to prep some of the engine components and prep them effectively for paint. As well as some of the wing and landing gear parts. Now in this video, we're gonna finish working on those engines. We're gonna get the exhaust ring painted up and we're gonna start doing the final detail painting on those engines, as well as continue working on the wings and the landing gear areas and prep those to be painted the interior green color. So let's get into it. As always, my name is Sean and this is Sean's Aviation. Okay, so here we are. As promised, I have engines painted steel. They still need a good pass of weathering, which will come up in the future. I'll use a bit of the Tamiya black wash on that, really get it in a nice heavy weathering pass on that. And I'm probably not gonna flat coat it. I will leave it slightly shiny because it is gonna be metallic and oil, and that's got a shine to it, so I'll leave that. The exhaust rings are also painted steel. I'm now going to do the pass with the Alclad exhaust manifold. That's burnt iron. That's exhaust manifold. So as I've stated, these paints do have a bit of a technique to them. They're very translucent. It allows the underlying color to pop. So I've never done it over the Vallejo steel. I've used the other Alclad colors before, where you paint it gloss black, then you hit it with the Alclad and you get the shine, and then you go over it with whatever other shades you want and you can build up these varying colors. This is the first time I've done Alclad over Vallejo, so we'll see how this goes. I could ruin it, I might not. Well, fingers crossed this turns out well. So let's get that done. We'll come back and see what they look like. And just like that, we have the cowlings and exhaust collectors painted. Now, as mentioned, I'm sure a number of times now, these were painted with Alclad, specifically the exhaust manifold color they have. And I'll zoom you in here a little bit, just so you can actually get a good look at the difference in color. Make sure this light is in a good spot. So there you can see the exhaust manifold painted over the Vallejo steel. It went down really nicely. Didn't have any interaction between the two different metals. And as I'm sure you can, or the different paints, I should say. And as I'm sure as you can see, it actually looks like a weathered exhaust manifold. And just to put it into perspective, if you put the steel engine beside it, you can see that difference in color. And when you get the two of them together, now I'm gonna have to like try to remember how this went. I think that went down and that went off to the side, I believe. And then if I line up, I said that hole. I'm going completely off memory here, so there we go. I believe if I line up that one with that one, yeah, it should all fit. So you can clearly see with the steel engine down inside, the manifold actually looks like an exhaust manifold. I think it's going to really play the part. I still have a lot going on in here I got to flesh out. There's the whole centerpiece gearbox reduction, and then all the black frames that are going to go in there and kind of hold that cowling in place. So still quite a bit to do, plus all the weathering and everything else. But I think that's really going to look the part. Yeah, very happy with that. I will let these sit for a while. Oh, also, while we have you zoomed in, you can see how well that seam turned out. You can still see a little bit on the side, but for the front here, there is absolutely no sign of that seam between that plastic. So the procedure I did to glue that on worked exactly as I wanted. I'm gonna do a little bit of weathering on this, just a little bit, and I'll do some exhaust staining on the actual airframe once I get everything installed. But those went together really, really well. And also, I was able to get the second wing done. So all the spar pieces for the second wing, I did the right wing already. The left wing has all been cleaned up. And as I mentioned, all of this all fits in here like that. The next step, which I will start doing right now actually, is the top parts of the wing. As I mentioned in the earlier section that I needed the top half of the wing, as there was another spar piece that fit in there, and I'm just trying to figure out, I don't have the instructions in front of me, so I'm just going to go off a sight line, but there they are there. So I need these upper, so you can see here, the upper wing and this inner upper spar. This is a forward spar, and it has the roof of the wheel well. This creates the upper part of the wheel well on that side. So I'm going to trim all this out and clean it up and get ready for paint. These should be relatively simple. A lot of it is hidden down inside the wing. And same thing when I'm trimming these wings off, I'm just trimming a little far. So I'm leaving a bit of sprue gate, and I will trim everything back and clean up just so I don't accidentally dig out a huge chunk of wing. Those sprues are starting to get empty. So the usual, we'll just clean these up. Again, not terribly worried. Most of this is not going to be visible inside the wing. But why leave it when you can just spend a little bit of time cleaning it up? I will be painting all of this green. Again, I don't know what is visible and what isn't. And I do know a section of this spar does act as a locating tab on the wing. And at least that rear spar is visible slightly inside the wing, and I do want to make sure, if it is visible, that it is painted green. And again, you don't want to leave a section unpainted. I've done this way too many times where you're like, oh, you're never going to see that part, and you don't paint it, and then after you assemble it all, you realize you can just catch an edge of it, and you should have painted a little bit more than you actually did. I mean, a perfect example was with the fuselage part there, the little area back where the gunner sits. I didn't weather part of it, thinking it was not needed, and I found out afterwards that it was. I painted the wrong side. I weathered the wrong side, and I didn't do the other side, and so I kind of caught myself. So that kind of stuff happens where you don't think you need it, you only paint one half, and you may mess up. So it's easier, even if you don't think you're going to see it, paint it, clean it, save yourself the long-term trouble. I think I might need to move on to a new sanding stick here soon. This one's starting to lose its sanding ability. She's getting a little used. Finish this side off, and then I'll do a little test. I want to kind of put it all together and see what it actually looks like and how easy it will be to access certain areas of that. Again, I might actually go ahead and tape a lot of this in place. I might even just do that now. I do have a little bit of tape right here. Let's just start taping all this in. Again, just to kind of get a feel. So if I have that one, I need this one. Not so worried about that outer spar, the aileron piece. I'm more worried about all of these that fit in here. I just want to make sure how much is accessible after the fact for gluing in landing gear. And I might even start with the landing gear and get some of that stuff assembled and paint it up like sooner rather than later. That way, if I find out that I can't fit it all together, I can go ahead and paint it. Or I should say assemble it before I start painting too much of this. You know, you want to get ahead of it. If it turns out I can't glue the landing gear in, it has to though. The gear folds up and goes inside, so everything should glue in place. I'm not a big fan of how open it is. Again, it's not an angle you're going to see very much. You're mostly going to see the forward and back, but I don't like how open. I think there's also another piece. There's a bulkhead that goes in there. I got to put that piece in. I don't like how open it is side to side though. I feel like there should be some pieces in there, some side bulkheads that would have closed that off. You shouldn't really notice it too much, as I said, once it's all painted, but it bothers me. It feels like a simple step they could have done by adding just a couple of cross pieces, and it would have made it look a little bit more realistic. But what are you going to do, right? But yeah, and then you can see the engine actually fits. The engine glues onto the thing like that. I have to figure out how I'm going to paint that properly. It looks like you need to do some, not sure how much of that's you're going to see. How much is there like a line? There is a paint line there. I might have to paint aluminum and then mask that off, or interior green, mask it, paint the camo around it, then pull the masking off. And then when you glue the engine and all the cowling on afterwards, it all lines up. Don't know. That'll be a problem for future me. But you can see how it is going to fit all together with the fuselage. And again, there's this little tiny wing, the forward wing spar, which gives you most of the strength. That just completely came off with my tape. I am completely just doing this quickly for my own entertainment more than anything. But there's this little rear spar that just fits in enough and is just visible in there. And that's what I'm going to have to paint interior green. I'm going to paint this one interior green as well, because that's just visible in there and I want it to look right. This forward spar actually lives inside the wing box the way it normally would on the real aircraft. So it's completely invisible inside there, the way that the actual aircraft would have had that carry-through spar. Most likely to, landing gear mounted to it and everything for strength. It would have been a single piece from wing joint to wing joint, from outer wing joint to outer wing joint, and it would just, the fuselage would drop over that spar just for the strength of everything and carry through. And you would have had your fuselage bolted to it, all your landing gear would be bolted to it, everything that had your bomb bay would probably be directly bolted to that spar as well to help carry the weight. That's like the backbone of the aircraft. It's probably that one spar that does the carry through on that. But yeah, you can start to see how it all fits. This wing just doesn't like to stay together. I mean, it's also just being held and not glued or anything, but yeah, that's a bit better. So yeah, there we go. And then when that fits over top of that, as I said, locks. And you can really start to see, as I said, the final look of everything. Seams are going to be nice. Yeah, everything will be nice. I will have to glue the wing on before I paint it though. I want to make sure that seam is in there nice and tight, get that all cleaned up properly before I paint. Shouldn't have to do any filling. It looks like I can get that as a nice tight seam without any type of filling. It's not a very big plane. It's a nice size. It'll fit well on my shelf. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and get, now that I've got all that tape together, I'm going to have to figure out all my tape situation and get all that off. Get that out of the way before I break something. Put these back before I ruin that. Those need to sit. Those exhaust rings need to sit for a solid 24 to 48 hours before I do anything to that. Luckily, I won't be doing anything with those for a while. And yeah, I'm going to clean up the other wing. I'll do that off camera. The only other thing I do need those two firewall pieces. And I need, what are my clippers? I need these, this and this, and that and that. I also need my gear doors, that, and that, because they will have green painted on the inside. And if I'm already painting green, I might as well paint everything that's going to be green. And to be perfectly honest, I think because when I have, let's see, yeah, I did grab the right side. When I have this all assembled, and I have an, oh my God, these really don't like staying together. Okay, when I have one of these assembled, and I have an engine mounted on it, and I have an exhaust ring mounted on it, yeah, you will see up inside the cowling. So what color am I going to do the inside of the cowling? Let's see what the instructions say. What color do I paint behind the engines before I glue the engines on? Does it say anything about that? Let's see. Calls for D. Doesn't say anything specific about the firewall, but D is burnt tin. Why would I paint an air intake burnt tin? I feel like that should be, I might paint it aluminum. I think I'm going to paint the insides of the cowlings as well as this area and that little intake piece. Just aluminum, plain unpainted aluminum. I don't know why. That's what my gut is telling me to do. I think that would be the better look. You'll have the weathered steel, the burnt aluminum, or the burnt look. You're not, well, you will see in behind the cowl flaps, I guess. It would be nice to see the camo end and that aluminum. Yeah, I want to do it all aluminum. Final answer. So this outside of this bulkhead, the little tube, and the insides of the cowlings will all be painted aluminum. This will all be painted interior green because this also lives in here, along with all of that. And you can look up and see that. So that'll be interior green. Yeah, again, I can see a bit of aftermarket coming in. There really, really needs to be, I might even do it myself, to be honest. Just a piece of plastic, just some plastic sheeting. And I might even make it with myself. I know I said I wanted to make this out of the box, but just for my own sanity, I think I'm just gonna do some sidewalls. Just so that when you look in here, it's not wide open. I feel like there should be, I mean, you'd probably have fuel tanks in here. So I suspect that'd be bladder style. You'd probably have the webbing of an interior fuselage frame and you would see through and see the fuel bladder. But yeah, I'm only going to just make some sheet plastic side pieces that will slide in there and completely hide everything. So I'll do that on the next one. Let's get, we'll clean all this up off camera and we will paint it green. No, let's clean this all up off camera. I'll come back. I'll make the little interior pieces and I'll probably glue them onto at least one of these frames. I'll probably glue them to the rear spar. Rear spar or forward spar? I don't know. Anyways. And then we'll start painting things green and getting ready to assemble it. Yeah, okay. Well, you know what? Either way, I'm sitting here mumbling. Let's get offline. I'm going to clean this stuff up. We'll come back here in a little bit and we'll see what's next. Now, there is one thing I just want to bring up with these gear doors. There is the tiniest amount of flash on these little hinge tabs. Test fitting, I was trying to see how they glued on, how easily they fit, so I could figure out whether I needed to install them first or if I could obviously most likely install them after painting. So there's flash on both sides. So here at the top, you just have to do the slightest amount of cleanup on the sides. These ones on the side don't really affect it as much. They still sit down in the pockets inside the nacelles. The problem is on this aft hinge by the cutout, on the aft side, there is the tiniest amount of flash that happens inside this little elbow corner. And that will impact how it sits. It causes the door to sit a little on an angle. When you go to slip it in, instead of being square, that causes it to try to kick out slightly and sit on a slightly bad angle. And you do have to get in here. It almost looks like there's an ejection point somehow that hits that, or something in the mold is hitting that and is flattening that plastic down and causing some flash to squeeze out into that elbow. And it takes just the slightest amount to get in there and clean it. And you do have to be careful because on the other one, I managed to break that off. It didn't come all the way off, but it bent it enough that I had to get a bit of glue in there and glue it back in. So just be warned, you will have to do some very fiddly cleanup. And it happened on all four doors. Just the slightest amount of cleanup on these little hinge tabs in order to make everything fit nice and square. But that is everything. Now I do have to let this one sit. This is the one I just glued, so I want to let it sit for about 12 hours before I do anything. But that is all of those internal pieces cleaned up. So we'll come back here soon and we will make those internal frames. Get some styrene, do only a bit of aftermarket exchange on this kit that I didn't want to do, but I'll do anyway. So let's get back, be here in a second, and we can get those little sidewalls made. Okay, so we're pretty much ready to paint some of this wing structure into your green, and I realized I had completely forgotten to make these little side bulkheads I was talking about. So basically, what I've done is I've cut a piece down to the width between the two spars, and now I'm just playing the game of making them fit. It doesn't have to be perfect. These are literally, I mean, they're never gonna be really seen after this video is published. Once the model is built and on the shelf, most of this will be completely invisible. But all I'm doing is, other than marking up my hand, putting the piece in place, using my Sharpie to make a rough mark where the top is. Ruler, I usually mark around along the bottom of my marks because I tend to mark high. Trim it to shape. And then do a test fit. Make sure it still fits. Right? And that's about perfect. And then I've been marking them. This one is the left wing inner bulkhead. And I've marked the back side, which you guys can't see because I'm zoomed in too close. I'm marking the back side, so I know the side that has the writing is the side that's going to be facing away from the wheel well and won't be seen. But you can now get an idea if that's somewhere about there, and then the left outer goes somewhere about, you know, there roughly. Obviously this will work better when they're when everything's glued in place. This is just, I'm trying to jam it all in there, but for illustrative purposes. But there, you kind of get the idea that when you look up inside, it'll look like a bit of a wing structure. And it'll close off that bomb bay slightly, and you're not going to have those hollow wings. It's not perfect. It's by no means accurate, but it's good enough to just hide the little tiny bit that you will see if you look up inside. And that's all I want. Again, little things with this kit that I'm surprised, considering where ICM normally sits. Things like the flash I'm seeing on what is effectively a brand new kit. Considering they got so much of this structure perfectly detailed and accurate, to miss the sides of the wheel wells. Now, again, you're gonna have to get up in an angle that you're not normally gonna see, but when I'm taking my pictures and I'm doing this video, I want to be able to see everything. I want it to look right. I want it to have the impression that it's there, and doing what I just did, that's all you need. It's not accurate. It's by no means the way it should look, but it's the impression that there's something there. So I'm gonna go ahead and get all of these back. Change up how I've done this because I've packed this a little too loose to fit another. Am I going to make this fit? Will this fit? I think so. 4 more clips. Those will need a little bit of cleanup later once it's in the wing. Like I said, I can do some touch up and some black wash to hide everything. But for now, I just want to get some paint down. Get a base level of weathering in there, and then we can finish everything up. So that's that. We're basically ready to go. Let's go paint some interior green. Okay, I have all of the green painted on the inside of the wing for the landing gear parts. I also, ooh, that is not a lot of water left in that. I gotta add some water to this. Okay, and I am back. My homemade black wash had effectively dried out. All the water had evaporated out. One of the downsides in the wintertime, it gets very dry in the house, and anything with water evaporates in just a matter of days. Okay, so now I have to go through and apply all the black wash that I would normally apply to the inside. Looks like I may have lost all of the soap that was in that. You can see how it's starting to bead up. The water is beating up. That's something I don't like to see, but I can fix it just by doing what I was doing here. Just smearing it around a little bit is enough to cause the beating to stop. So now I just have to go through and apply all this black wash to the areas. Now again, I'm not entirely sure how much you're going to see, so I'm going to black wash the entirety of the area, and it will sort itself out in the wash. If you don't see it, you don't see it. If you do see it, well, it's going to have a coating of black wash and will look proper. So, I mean, again, I'm not going to sit here and make you watch me do this. You've seen this before. Just apply it. Actually, I want it a little bit up in here too. Part of this might be seen up inside. But yeah, so that's it. I'm just going to go ahead and apply this to the interior of all of these surfaces. Yeah, I'm like very, very positive that my soap has left the building. You can tell just by the way the bubbles form. They don't spread out. That's a pretty good sign that your water is beading and you've lost that ability of the soap to stop it from the water tension from forming. So anyways, it is what it is. This is not something that's gonna be highly visible. As I said, it'll be up inside the wing. You'll have to turn the kit over to see it, which really will only happen when I'm doing my pictures of the finished kit. Otherwise, it will all be gone. Excuse me, I'll be hidden, I should say, up inside the wing in an area that is completely non-visible with the finished kit. I'm just going to quickly do a little bit of the wing spar part on camera, just so you can see how that starts to look. And then I have an appointment I got to get to. So I'm going to go. Here's the part I want to do on camera. This is that area where the gear is going to attach. And when you start to weather that up nicely, just like anything else, you'll really start to see the detail pop. Hit that with a good coat of dry brush. Same for this whole area. Under here, don't know how much again of this is going to be visible, but I'm going to do all of it. I can always, I mean, if you don't see it, you don't see it, but you're better off to have it if you're going to see it. But that's the part you want to be, you really want to do. This area right here is the area that's the most visible on the finished kit, because this is that floor you're going to see up inside. So I want to make that look as nice as possible. And I think that does it. I think that's the look. That's what I want. Yep. So, as I said, I'm just going to work my way through all of this, and we'll come back to do some dry brushing in the near future. Okay, so just like that, actually, I mean, it's been a couple hours, but I've got all of these painted green. All the weathering is done. I've done a bunch of dry brushing. Hard to tell how much of this is actually going to pop on camera, but when you actually get everything installed into the model, it looks really, really good. The colors all, I mean, again, it's going to be hard to make it come across on camera properly, but when this is in place, when I can get that lined up, there we go, and you're looking down inside of it from outside, which is what you're going to be doing when this kit is actually finished, it actually looks the part. You're getting highlights where you want it, you're getting shadows where you want it. It's really going to come across nice. I think it looks better in person than what is able to come across on the camera easily. So this also will be fitting somewhere up in here, something like that. And then the little side pieces that I've made up are going to fit in there as well. And all together, when all of that is together, I think it's going to give you the look you want to have. It's going to look busy, and it's going to look, trying to explain this in a way that gets across. It looks the part. It looks dirty enough. There's enough highlights. You can see the detail. I think it's just enough to sell the fact that there's a dirty wheel well in there. Now, I did just do all of the dry brushing, so I am going to let these sit for a little bit before I move on. And you know what, perfectly honest, I don't even know what's next. I still don't have the masks. There's nothing else I can do on the interior of this kit. I honestly believe the next thing I'm going to need to do is start working on the landing gear. I think I'm going to have to start assembling landing gear pieces, and possibly even assembling wings, to be perfectly honest. And that's going to be the test, the next test. I'm going to start gluing these pieces in. I'm going to let them sit. As I said, they need a good 24 hours now. Paint, the black wash, the dry brushing. I want them to sit for a good 24 hours, really harden up. I think the next thing I want to do is start trimming out these main landing gear pieces. They need to be painted black. And then I can see, you know, with the wing partially assembled, how easy it is to get the gear in there. And that's really going to be the test of how well I can do this. So let's get these put aside, let them dry, and we'll start working on some landing gear. Well, I completely lied with what I was going to get done. Did plan to do some work on the landing gear. Unfortunately, when I came down to work, my kids were on the computer, and that meant I was not able to do any recording here at the desk with audio. So I did a little bit of offline work, and specifically, I did some work with the stuff I'd painted steel, and I did a little bit of weathering. Now, as always with this, I'm not entirely sure how well this will translate onto the camera. So these are the, you know what, that does show up pretty good. These are the ammo cans. So you can see this one here is the one that I weathered. This one isn't. And there's just enough change in the, get some, how much direct light can I get in here before, there we go. So yes, this one's weathered, this one's not. And you can really see the difference in what you can see. A lot more definition in this one, a lot more detail. This one is a little more flat. And that's kind of what I'm looking for. Darken it up a little bit and give it some shadows and definition. So this is what's going to look really, really good. With the machine guns, same thing. The focus is not happy. So there is an unweathered one, and there's the weathered one. Again, not sure how well that's going to pick up on camera, but this is just a slightly darker color, and it's got a lot more shadow and definition. I will do a second round on this. I just want this flooded with black wash, and I want it looking really dark and weathered. The engines, again, I'm sure without even having to tell you which one's which, you can tell this one's the weathered one. Just a slightly different color, and again, a bit more depth and shadow. So same thing, I'm going to do another coat on this, and I'm going to go ahead and do that. So let's zoom out just a little bit, and we'll go ahead and do that weathering. So as I mentioned, this is the one that I've already done. I do want to give it another hit. I want as much definition and shadow as possible. I'll let that dry, and then I've got this one I haven't hit at all yet, so I'm just going to go ahead and do the same thing. I believe this is the upper gun, that's the lower gun. So yeah, I'll let that dry. This is the one that goes up in the nose section, the fixed machine gun. This one is going to get a lot of visibility because of its spot up there in the nose. So same thing, I want it looking really weathered, lots of shadow and definition on that. So I'm just giving it a really heavy coat of weathering. And then same thing, we'll let that dry. The ammo cans, I'm not going to do a second coat on. I think one is enough. So with these, same thing. I'm just giving it a nice, ooh, nice heavy dollop of weathering. It does tend to lighten when it dries, so a heavy coat will not affect it very much. I do have just a tiny bit too much on that one, and I did not get any type of paper towel ready or Kleenex to absorb it, so I needed to grab one. We'll just transfer that a little farther down the line. There we go. Last two, and then we'll do the engine. Oh, way too much on that. There we go. Let's put that aside. And then with the engines, same thing as before, just super, super heavy application. I'll get my tweezers. I was using the tweezers to hold in the center, as I will not be putting any weathering in that area. I can hold it in here, and there's no chance of me touching the area. In the off chance that this Tamiya black wash softens the paint and causes it to, it shouldn't. This is a water-based paint, whereas this is an oil-based wash. So the two shouldn't interact at all. In the off chance that it does, holding it in the middle means there's no chance I'll grab it with my fingers and accidentally smudge the paint to put a fingerprint in the paint. So just gonna go around, apply a very, very liberal coat of black wash, get it in everywhere, let it soak down into all those corners. If you think you put too much, add a bit more. And then I'm going to get up in here. This inner ring will have glue on it, but there's a secondary outer ring here. And I want to make sure that has a good coating of black wash, and add a couple more to these cylinders. Now again, it will get a second coat, and that's what I'm going to do with this one. This is the one I did earlier. I can come through and just on those cylinder cooling fins, put a second layer. A nice heavy second coat. Same thing, I want it to soak down into all of the corners and crevices and darken them up and shadow them up. So that's pretty good. Now we let it dry again. It's going to take a couple of coats to really get these engines where I like them. And again, you can't have too much. I do like where that one is. This one will need that second coat. I still haven't even touched the backside. Although you won't see much of the backside, I'm still going to give it a good coat of wash. So let those dry. We'll come back. I think some of this, the rest of this, I'll basically do offline. So we'll just come back and see what a finished weathering pass will look like. Now, however, that I don't have kids at the computer making noise and interrupting my filming, I will reset this camera just a touch, and we will grab the sprues and we'll start trimming out what I need for the landing gear. I do plan on doing that, so I need, what is this? E. Yeah, that's easy. It's all an E sprue. So, should be relatively easy. I'm gonna need this here, E44. and then 46, 45, and 22, which I believe is over here. And then 49 and 47, which yeah, it's gonna be a bit of a pain, to be honest. I'm gonna check the other side. That's the other side, the other two numbers, 49, 47. The opposite side is 48 and 50, and they are duplicates. So I am going to trim that off. And the last one I need is 24, which is over here. Now, if you're wondering exactly what I would, oh, you know what I'm also going to do? Am I going to do this now? No, I'll do that later. I will get the engine crankcases taken out before I paint any of this black. So as I was saying, on this one gear, which looks like it's the right-hand gear we're doing first, you need 47 and 49. For the left-hand gear, you need 48 and 50. You actually get two sets of them, so you do have an extra set. And because they're so tiny, and I don't want to mix them up, I'm going to paint them on the sprue. So 48 can go in the spares box. I'll have 47 and 49. I'll have my little markers so I'll know which one is which. I can quickly touch up the sprue gate with a brush after I trim them off, but that will allow me to paint them black on it with an airbrush and know which one is which. And I'll have 48 and 50 from the other E-sprue to get me through. Now, what I also need to do is make sure I am trimming off any of these little tabs that I don't need. So there's one here that has to come off. And there's one here that has to come off. And there's one here, which is in a really awkward position, and I'll have to trim that down later. On this side, there's one on each one of these little pieces, little extension arms. And then this has one on each side. And also to note, as I've been talking about it quite heavily with this kit and how surprised I am, that little piece, I want to say it was E22. Yeah, E22 has a good amount of flash. And I don't understand why this kit has so much flash. I don't know if they've had issues with the molds. I don't know. And you know what I'm also going to mention? I noticed this when I was trimming off the little tiny spar pieces that fit in those wings. These little guys here, they're like the little aileron, outer spar aileron pockets. They come off this A-sprue, and on one side, A1 is mounted directly to the sprue. On the other side, A13, it has this weird like plastic sprue, extra sprue attached to it. And this is mounted to this extra little sprue. And if I didn't know any better, I would say that they completely screwed up the molding. That this was initially one of those pieces, and somewhere along the line, they realized they screwed up the molding and they just bored out the mold and added and drilled a new one. Because why else would you have this long connecting sprue that doesn't solve anything, and actually made it a lot harder? And you might have noticed at that part where I was trimming those out, I had trouble getting this piece trimmed out. And I didn't realize why until after the fact. It has this giant sprue that's redundant to use. And I think this was a mistake. I think there was an error in the molding or the CNCing of the molds of the actual physical molds. And they bored it out and redid it. That's my guess on it. Something like, maybe they realized they copied it one for one instead of mirror imaging it or something, and they didn't realize until after the fact. But I don't know. I don't know if the quality is now. I mean, it is a Ukrainian company, and there's a lot happening over there right now that might be impacting their QC, quality assurance or quality assurance or quality control, however you want to word it. There's probably challenges they're having in that department because of what's happening. But I don't know. It's just it's new. I didn't see these kind of issues when I was looking at the A26 that I built I guess it was 2 years ago now. So yeah. Anyways, food for thought. Just be warned when you are doing this. You know what I need? I don't need the instructions anymore. What I do need is my round file. But yeah, just be aware, keep an eye on it. Make sure you are cleaning up anything that is needing cleaned up. There is some flash, so just be aware. This kit does take a little bit of effort to make sure that it gets together the way it's supposed to. Just like these sprue gates are in a little bit of an awkward position sitting on the inside of a radius, so just take your time. Having a round file is definitely a bonus. And while I'm here, I will clean up. That is a thick piece of flash. That is not an insignificant difference in molding. And there is a good mold seam all the way down the side of that. That does take, it's on both sides even. So there's definitely something with the mold here. But take your time. As you can clearly see, it doesn't take much to fix it. You just have to be aware and take the time. Okay, so that's now cleaned up. So that I'm gonna get myself, man, I'm not, this is the 5th little shot glass cup that I'm grabbing for this kit. I've got so many subcomponents on the go. Well, normally I would have, assembled the fuselage and used up all of these, or assembled the wings and used up all of these. I haven't. So I'm getting all of these little cups going, keeping track of all my parts. I'm not used to this. Anyways, I also tend to build a lot slower. I've built this so much faster than I thought I would be. I think, where did that go? I think I'm at like 2 weeks since I got this kit. And I'm, other than the waiting on the masks, I mean, it's not too much longer and this thing will be assembled. So I'm building significantly faster than I have in years. This is a very awkward piece to trim. So if you are doing this, just be careful. It wants to snap and break. I can feel, I've done that a few times too. I can just feel as I'm trying to trim this sprue gate off, the plastic flexing in my fingers, and just part of me doesn't want to break the plastic and the other part of me is terrified of the knife slipping and digging itself into my hand. So I'm just being very slow and deliberate with my movements. I'm not going to do too much more on this. It is going to be that kind of mounts. Let's see if I can find out where that goes. On one of these sides anyways. It kind of mounts like a horseshoe behind the main wheel. Not sure what side it goes on, but one of these sides. So that's ready. This one, again, this sprue gate up here is going to be an absolute pain to trim because it's just going to flex with all the bits around it. The plastic is going to want to snap, or I'm going to take my finger off. I'm going to trim it on the cutting board. Try my best here. just start to eat away at it as much as I can. And then I need a small file. And I'll just get in there. You know what? That was not nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be. I am a little worried about how fragile this whole mounting bit looks. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot actually holding this landing gear together. Yeah, anyways. It seems like a pretty flimsy mount. I mean, it's trying to be accurate, which, again, I'll give them credit for. It looks like they've got the shape of the gear very close to original, but it just means that in terms of actual gluing surfaces, it's not the best. So we'll see. I mean, that's only the main gear. There's also this rear support. Should be strong enough, but I won't really know. I've had a couple of kits where you build it up and the main gear is super weak. But yeah, anyways. Till you get it together, you won't really know. Cleaning up these last little sprue gates on this, and then we'll move on to the supports. All in all, the gear looks nice. There isn't a lot of, at least on these parts here, there isn't any type of mold seams. A lot of gears have mold seams running down them, and they tend to, it's hard because of all the different, landing gear are made up of many different components with these collars and all these different brackets and stuff. And when you get a mold seam running down them, they can be very difficult to clean without ruining the detail. And so far, I don't see that issue on this kit. So it looks like, for the most part, yeah, nice details. The wheels, I still have to build up. That'll be the other thing, is how easy it'll be to slide the wheel on after the fact. Because, yeah, I mean, until I really get this assembled, I'm not going to know. That's the downside to it. It's hard to plan ahead and predict until you get it built. This one does have a little bit of a mold seam on it. So just take your time, sand it off. Not horrible. It's very noticeable on the square section, not so much on the round. And then this little tiny piece down here, which is always a pain because they're bouncy and flexy, and you can't get the pressure on it you need to sand without causing it to snap off. But I think we got it. And it's a little annoying because of the way this is built. This kind of assembles together. Yeah, these little like half moon things like that. And then this fits down in here. And then this fits into here. Yeah, okay, you know what? You can start to see, might have that backwards to be honest. Oh, I can't have that backwards, the hole's only on one side. But yeah, you can start to see it all coming together. Yeah, okay. I take back what I said. It's gonna be, once it all triangulates nicely, it should be pretty strong. It will be a little difficult trying to glue all that together after the wing is assembled, because you're going to be trying to, fit up inside that little tiny space of the wheel well and get everything in there properly. But I think, as I mentioned earlier, it'll be a lot easier. It'll be easier to try to glue the gear in after and fight with it that way than to try to mask the gear off while painting the lower fuselage. So I think it's the lesser of two evils to just install the gear after. But yeah, lesser of two evils is a relative term. Because if that's like that, and then you're going to be fitting this, yeah, see, you can get that down inside. That will glue in like that. But then you're going to be trying, well, no, you know what, that's not that bad, because you can glue that in. You can get the little tiny legs in the back. I'm also fighting with it, trying to get this to stay in. But if you get this glued in properly, use Tamiya white. That'll give you some play time. Get that glued into place while it's kind of sitting there, solidifying up. You can knock on those little tiny pieces back there. That will set that angle. And then these should just, that should just slip right in from behind. You already have everything in. You just slide it in, put it into that, tuck it into the back of the landing gear. Oh yeah, that should go together nice. Okay, I take back what I said. It should go together without much effort, as long as you are triangulating everything and getting everything done properly. So that is one side of the main gear done. I'm going to call this episode here. I'm going to get the other half of the gear off the sprue, offline. And when we come back for the beginning of episode 7, I will have all the landing gears off and trimmed up, and we can start preparing those for paint, as well as everything else we need to paint black. And we'll do another round of airbrushing with the black paint, which I think is the landing gear components that were already trimmed. These pieces that are going to go up inside the cowling that holds the exhaust ring in place, and the propellers. I think that's what we're going to do on the next one. And the part for the engine. The, landing gear components, crankcase, cowling supports, propellers. We'll get all that stuff prepped at the beginning of episode 7, and we will be ready to start painting some black. So thank you all for watching. As I said, this was episode 6. Stick around for episode 7. And also browse the channel. See what else you might like on this, and enjoy the channel. And on that note, thank you for watching. We'll see you all next time.